The question being asked is, would earlier closing times for big clubs with pokie machines help tackle problem gambling? Zaya Toma is a Liberal councillor for the Fairfield Council, and he reckons it would, saying that the only people gambling at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning are hooked on the pokies. I'm not convinced that's 100% right, but the councillor joins me on the line, Zaya Toma. Councillor, I appreciate your time.
Andrew, thanks for having me on.
No, my pleasure. You say these clubs staying open to 5, 6 o'clock in the morning is making problem gambling worse. What time would be an ideal closing time?
Look, well, first of all, let me say straight out that I'm opposed to Andrew Wilkie's reforms. I think they go too far. I mean, what we need to find a solution for is problem gambling, and we don't want to kill off the clubs completely because they have an important role to play in the community. Now, and as a Liberal, I mean, I believe in personal responsibility and in the freedom of, private organisations to make their money legally. But the problem in Fairfield in particular is that there is a huge problem with problem gambling. I mean, a report by Judith Stubbs found that 70% of the disposable income is spent playing pokie. So it's not all forms of gambling, it's just this one type. So, we do need some sort of solution to this problem.
Sorry, Councillor, 70% of who are spending their disposable income?
The average resident in Fairfield was spending their disposable income on pokies.
That is huge. Is that
a
problem far outweighing most other areas?
Well, it's the highest concentration of gambling in the state, and it's one of the most disadvantaged areas in the state at the same time.
See, just on the closing time, first of all, we did an outside broadcast earlier this year at some point, a few months ago, and I was doing Alan's show at breakfast, and so I arrived at the pub at 3 in the morning, or the club at 3 in the morning, and walked past an outdoor area where there were lots of poker machines, and everyone playing them there, and it was pretty full at 3 in the morning on a Friday morning, and they were all drunk. The smell of spirits and beer was overwhelming, as opposed to what I would probably look around and think, they've got a problem. But is it more a case that if you're gambling at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you think you've got a problem than just perhaps a problem with alcohol, or both?
Well, who knows? I mean, mental illness, alcohol addiction, any other type of addiction, problem gambling, homelessness sometimes is all interrelated. I mean, there's a connection between all of these problems. And closing the clubs at that time might not be the solution, but it's something that I've put forward. I mean, there could be legislation to just close down pokies at that time, at 2 a.m. But another thing is these clubs are normally in residential areas, so you've got to balance the right of residents to have a good amenity in their neighbourhoods when these very large institutions now right in the middle, plonked right in the middle of their suburbs, and if they're closing at 3, 4, 5 a.m. and then opening up again at 7 a.m., residents don't get much respite. So it's about finding a balance between, keeping residents happy in their neighbourhoods and giving them some peace, as well as giving residents somewhere to go to on a Friday night or a Thursday night. But during the week, on weekdays, I don't see, a very strong reason to have clubs open beyond midnight in these residential areas, and 2 a.m. on weekends. Now, that might not be a solution. Maybe it's to have counselling, offered on site in the club. I mean, the clubs will tell you that they need the pokies because people don't like to go travel far distances in the city to gamble. Well, people don't like to travel very far, so maybe instead of offering counselling off-site, maybe another solution is to have counselling on-site.
And you're worried too, as I understand it, about the Vietnamese and Assyrian communities in Fairfield. Yeah. Are these communities more than others induced to be heavy gamblers? Fairfield has a strong multicultural presence. There's over 150 communities, and that's one of the reasons there are so many clubs in the Fairfield area, because, if each ethnic community has its own club, that's already a lot of clubs in the area. And all those clubs then have pokies, so, just by virtue of having a huge amount of clubs, we've got a huge amount of pokies. So, but when you're walking around these clubs, it's normally, there's a higher presence of Vietnamese and Assyrians playing. It's affected those communities
more. It's impacted on those communities more, and it's a very staggering effect. I've heard stories because every now and again I'll go do a street walk through shops just to speak to the shop owners to see how they're going. And one of the complaints the shop owners have is that because everybody's spending their money gambling, then they come to the shop owners and they ask for freebies or credit, and it hurts the shop owners because then they have to either help these guys out and not make any money, or just they feel bad to saying no, look, you can't have that, save up.
Yeah, and if they start saying that, they might start finding themselves getting robbed.
Yeah, well, that's one, and you hear other stories like a guy who's worked for 2 weeks without telling his wife about getting paid. So the wife calls the boss up and she says, how come you aren't paying my husband? And he'll say, well, I paid him and I gave him an advance on his next pay.
Oh dear, yep.
So he's gone and gambled all of that.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, you sound like a decent man to me, Zaya, and you sound like your heart's in the right place. I'll be interested to get reaction from listeners to your idea of bringing forward the closing down times of at least the poker machine rooms, or having counselling on site late at night into the early hours of the morning. Zaya Toma, counsellor with Fairfield Council, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.